So, dear audience and dear committee, let me present my PhD topic, which is about biomaterials and prosthetic design on the peri-implant soft and hard tissues. I am Péter Tajti from the Department of Prosthodontics. My vision is to provide the best treatment available for my patients in implant rehabilitation. Therefore, my mission is implementing the fully digital workflow in every aspect of it. These are my two specific goals, which I will talk about in the next few slides. First project of mine is about two restoration materials and comparison of them. We know that in prosthodontics, the gold standard restoration material is metalceramic for many years now because of their excellent survival rates. But later, as the digital technologies in dentistry evolved as well, other materials came into practice because they can be manufactured with CAD/CAM technology. One of them is zirconia, and we usually use zirconia for the framework material, as in metal ceramics. But the problem with these, they are not so aesthetical, so we need veneering ceramic on top of the framework. The biggest problem with these veneering ceramics is the relatively high rate of chipping as a technical complication. This can affect the aesthetics and the function of the restoration as well. So in order to eliminate this technical complication, we started to use zirconia alone. This is called full contour or monolithic zirconia. Monolithic restorations can eliminate these technical complications. They are also favorable in biological effects because they show low plaque accumulation rate and low bleeding index. They are also promising in aesthetics, and they have high accuracy because of the ability for CAD/CAM digital processing. So our aim was to compare and investigate the potential benefits of using monolithic zirconia restorations when compared with the gold standard metal ceramic. We used a PICO framework. The patients were partial edentulous patients in need of single implant restorations. The intervention was the prosthetic rehabilitation with monolithic zirconia crowns. The comparator was the metal ceramic crowns. We investigated the marginal bone loss restoration survival and implant survival, bleeding on probing, and chipping as well. Our hypothesis was that monolithic zirconia restorations can be a valid alternative to metal ceramics. After the selection process, we ended up with 4 eligible articles, and our first outcome is marginal bone loss. This is important because bone gives the stability for the implant, so it is crucial, and it is measured with millimeters. We see a mean difference of minus 0.11. This tells us that in monolithic zirconia group, there were 0.11 millimeter less bone loss. This is not statistically significant and nor clinically relevant. The next outcome is bleeding on probing. Bleeding is important because it shows us the inflammation of the soft tissues around the implants. Here we can see 0.66 odds ratio, which means that there were approximately 1/3 less bleeding occurrences. This is neither significant statistically or clinically. The third one is chipping, technical complication. At first, we included all the eligible articles, but we saw that there's an outlier study because in Mangano article, there was one occurrence of chipping in the monolithic zirconia group, and this was due to the bruxism of the patient. So we excluded this article, and in the second analysis, without the bruxis patient, we can see statistically significant difference between the two groups, favoring monolithic zirconia. The last outcome is implant failure. Here, we do not see relevant difference between the two groups implant failure was same in both groups. So we can say at 1 year follow-up, both restorations were similar regarding the bone loss, bleeding, and survival rates. So monolithic zirconia crowns can be a valid alternative option, as they presented significantly less chipping over a year. The strengths are that we included only RCTs. This was the first meta-analysis in this topic, and we had a low statistical heterogeneity. However, we had low number of studies with short-term follow-up periods, and there were some heterogeneity among the included patients. Using this material in the practice would mean more predictable outcomes, more effective restorations, a quicker production as well, and cost-effective manufacturing. Maybe soft tissue adaptation would be better as well, but these are we need more studies regarding this. We need also more studies in long-term and medium follow-up periods. We need more detailed inclusion criteria and more homogeneous population. This manuscript was published in the Journal of Prosthetic Dentistry, D1 journal. The second topic is about different prosthetic designs in implant restorations. So the hard and soft tissue stability is crucial for the long-term implant success. And after the implantation, soft tissue will form an attachment around the implants. And so therefore, an unavoidable bone loss will occur around the implants. This marginal bone loss determines the long-term success of implant restorations. But these marginal bone loss can be influenced by many factors, as you can see, such as the tissue thickness, the abutment micrograph, the positioning of the implant, and prosthetic components as well. And we are interested in the abutment height as a prosthetic design, because individual studies say that long abutments may be better, may preserve more bone. So we want to investigate the two abutment heights and their influence on the bone stability and peri-implant soft tissue. The outcomes were also bone loss and some periodontal parameters, and our hypothesis was that long abutments may experience less marginal bone loss. We ended up with 8 eligible articles, and the first outcome is marginal bone loss, again, at 6 months. Here we can see statistically significant difference between the two groups, favoring the long abutments. In the short abutments group, there was significantly more bone loss. The marginal bone loss at 1 year, here overall, we can see a statistically significant difference, favoring also the long abutments. And we also did 2 subgroup analyses. In this subgroup, abutments were placed after the healing period, whereas in this other subgroup, the abutments were placed immediately after implantation. Between the two subgroups, there was no significant difference in bone loss. And the next one is bleeding on probing. Here we can see that the two groups presented similar results regarding bleeding. The last one is probing pocket depth at 1 year. Unfortunately, we could only include 2 articles in this analysis, and we did not see any relevant difference between the two groups. So we can say using long abutments at short-term follow-up, it would mean significantly less marginal bone loss. So longer abutments are favorable options for decreasing this bone loss. And the time of abutment connection may not influence the biological outcomes. We had 6 RCTs in this analysis. This is the first analysis from the soft tissue parameters. And we also had analysis about abutment connection timing, and we used only human studies. Some of the limitations are the short-term follow-up. and some heterogeneity among the restoration types and the implant placement levels. Using long abutments in the practice would mean more bone. With more bone, we have more stable tissues and more predictable outcomes. Also, we need more studies in this question with longer follow-ups and uniform implant depths and uniform prosthesis. This manuscript was first rejected in the first journal and the second journal as well, and now it's in the third journal. We are waiting for the editor approval. This is some of my additional activities. We presented a poster at the International Osteology Symposium in Barcelona. And finally, I would like to thank you for your kind attention.
My first question, in your first study you used OR as an outcome, and in the other study you used RR, risk ratio. Why?
Odds ratio.
What is the reason why you use different outcomes?
Odds ratio is easier to work with mathematically, and risk ratio is it's easier to present, but the exact reason why the statistician used there were two statisticians, I guess, at the first one and the second project, and I don't know the exact reason why they use different.
What is the difference between them?
Well, the odds ratio is a symmetric measure and is from 0 to infinity, while the risk ratio is from 0 to 1. And the other way.
Okay, let's go on. And why in the second study you had two subgroups, it's ICC 0 and ICC 1. What is the difference between them?
Yes, we needed this ICC it's intra-class correlation coefficient, and we needed this because in some patients there were more than one implants placed in one patient, and those implants could correlate with each other. So we needed ICC 0, which means zero dependence, and ICC 1, which means full dependence.
And how do you plan to handle this problem? It's just as subgroups, or do you have a plan to handle this statistically on another way?
It would be better if every patient got one single implant, of course, but unfortunately we don't have so many studies and articles, so we have to include those ones as well that got more than one implant.
Okay, thanks.
Well, nice presentation. I think there is no doubt that zirconia is a very good material, so I don't comment too much. But for the second article, I want to demand you why you didn't make the difference between as thickness of the gaps. I think it's maybe an important thing.
Thank you for the comment. Initially, we wanted to do a subgroup analysis regarding soft tissue thickness as well. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough data regarding that. Only 2 articles investigated soft tissue thickness, and they found that maybe the soft tissue thickness didn't influence the marginal bone loss, because they placed short and long abutments in soft tissue thickness, thin soft tissue thickness, and they also did short and long abutments in thick soft tissue thickness, and they didn't find difference. So maybe soft tissue thickness is not the major problem here. Another interesting question is the level of abutment, level of implant placement. Maybe that influences more the bone loss, but we have to investigate it with more studies.
Why did you think it has an influence on the bleeding on probing? I mean, the metal fused, porcelain fused to metal versus zirconium. I would think it depends on the retention. I mean, screw retained or cemented, and the methodology of the cementation, for example, I would think it has more influence on the inflammation instead of the material.
Yes, you are totally right. Thank you. Regarding soft tissue parameters, unfortunately, we only had the bleeding on probing parameter to investigate. These studies did not investigate others such as recession of the mucosa. Maybe it would be better to see, but yes, bleeding is also influenced by individual oral hygiene. So that's an interesting question.